Amid the heavy snowfall on Christmas night, a black single father was driving his old pickup truck home with his daughter when they spotted an elegantly dressed elderly woman trembling as she frantically dug through a trash bin, desperately searching for her late husband's last keepsake. Without hesitation, the father and daughter immediately pulled over and rushed to help. Despite the judgmental stares and the risk of being misunderstood, the little girl even invited the woman home for dinner and softly said, "No one should be alone on Christmas." Those simple words brought the elderly woman to tears. No one knew that this small act of kindness would soon change all of their lives forever. Before we go back, let us know where you're watching from and subscribe, because tomorrow I've got something extra special for you. The heater in Jude Brooks's '98 Ford pickup rattled like a can full of pennies. He'd meant to fix it last summer, then the summer before that, but somehow there was always something more urgent. Lily's school shoes, the landlord's late fee, the electric bill that came with a red warning stamp. "Daddy, why does our car sound like it's coughing?" Lily asked from the passenger seat, her legs swinging because they didn't quite reach the floor yet. Jude glanced at his daughter and felt that familiar tug in his chest. She was 6 years old, all elbows and knees, and questions that never stopped. Her hair was braided into 2 neat cornrows that he'd spent 40 minutes on that morning watching YouTube tutorials while she ate her cereal. The jacket she wore was 3 years old, patched at the elbows with fabric flowers he'd sewn on himself. Not because he was good at sewing, because he had to be. "It's just singing us a Christmas song, baby girl," he said, turning the wheel with hands that were still stained with grease from his shift at the auto shop. Lily's face lit up like someone had flipped a switch inside her. "Oh, then I should sing too." Before Jude could brace himself, she launched into Jingle Bells at a volume that could wake the dead and a pitch that could probably kill them again. She was off-key by at least 3 notes, hitting some words and completely making up others, but she sang with the kind of confidence that made Jude wish he could bottle it and save it for when she got older and the world tried to take it away from her. "Jingle bells, Batman smells Robin laid an egg." "That's not how it goes," Jude said, but he was grinning. He couldn't help it. "Yes, it is. Tyler at school taught me." "Tyler's got you singing about Robin laying eggs in the Batmobile." "Uh-huh." She nodded so hard her braids bounced. "And then the Batmobile lost a wheel and the Joker got away." Jude shook his head, still smiling as he turned onto Maple Street. He'd grown up 3 blocks from here, back when this neighborhood still had corner stores that knew your name and porches where people actually sat. Now it was all wine bars and organic grocery stores with prices that made his eyes water. But cutting through the back alley behind the fancy part of town shaved 10 minutes off their route home, and 10 minutes meant Lily could start her homework before she got too tired and cranky. The snow was coming down harder now, thick flakes that stuck to the windshield faster than his wipers could clear them. Christmas was 2 days away. He'd already wrapped Lily's presents, such as they were. A set of colored pencils from the dollar store, a pair of gloves he'd knitted himself by following a pattern online, though they'd come out looking a little lopsided. She wouldn't care. She never cared about things like that. That's what killed him sometimes, how little she asked for, how much she appreciated what little he could give. The alley was narrow-lined with industrial dumpsters that served the backs of the upscale restaurants and boutiques. Jude knew this route well. He'd cut through here 100 times always at dusk when the dinner rush was starting and the back doors opened to let out steam and the smell of food he couldn't afford. "Daddy, look." Lily pressed her face against the window, her breath fogging the glass. "There's a ferry by the trash." "A ferry?" Jude slowed the truck, squinting through the snow. "Yeah, but I think she fell down." That's when he saw her. At first, his brain couldn't make sense of what he was seeing. A woman older, maybe 70, was bent over one of the large commercial dumpsters behind what looked like a high-end jewelry store. She wore a fur coat that probably cost more than Jude made in 6 months, but it was smeared with something dark and wet. Her white hair had come loose from whatever fancy style it had been in, hanging around her face in wild strands. And her shoes, Jesus, her shoes were those designer heels with the red bottoms that he'd only ever seen in movies, now scuffed and covered in slush. She was digging through the garbage, not carefully, not delicately, frantically, like a person drowning and searching for air. Jude's foot hovered over the gas pedal. Every instinct he'd developed over 30 years of being a black man in America told him to keep driving. Rich white lady in distress in a wealthy neighborhood that was a setup waiting to happen. Someone would see him stop. Someone would call the cops. Someone would assume he was robbing her, threatening her, doing something he had no business doing. But then the woman looked up and he saw her face. She was crying. Not elegant, quiet tears. The kind of crying that came from somewhere deep and desperate. Her hands were shaking as she pulled out a torn garbage bag, peering inside it with the kind of hope that made Jude's stomach hurt. "Daddy, we have to help her." Lily was already reaching for the door handle. "Baby, wait." But Lily had already rolled down her window, leaning out into the snow. Ma'am, are you looking for treasure?" The woman's head snapped up. For a second, she just stared at Lily with wide, red-rimmed eyes. Then her face crumpled again. "They threw it away," she said, her voice hoarse and breaking. "My housekeeper threw it away, and I can't find it. It's here somewhere. It has to be here." Jude's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He thought about his shift tomorrow, about the bills on his kitchen table, about every time he'd been in the wrong place at the wrong time and had to explain himself to people who'd already decided what kind of person he was based on the color of his skin. Then he thought about Lily's face, about the way she looked at the world and saw fairies instead of rich ladies having breakdowns, about the kind of man he wanted to be for her. He put the truck in park and turned off the engine. "Stay in the truck, Lily." "But Daddy." "Stay. I mean it." He stepped out into the cold, his boots crunching in the snow. The woman had gone back to digging, muttering something under her breath that he couldn't make out. Up close, he could see that the stains on her coat were coffee grounds and something that might have been marinara sauce. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold on to the bags she was sorting through. Jude cleared his throat. "Ma'am." She didn't look up. "It's here. It has to be here. Mrs. Chen said she put it out with the evening trash, so it has to." "What are you looking for?" Finally, she looked at him. Her eyes were a pale blue, bloodshot, and desperate. She seemed to struggle with the words. Then they came out in a rush. "A wooden music box. About this big." She made a shape with her trembling hands, maybe 6 inches square. "Dark walnut. There's a crack along the lid. It doesn't play anymore, but inside there's a letter. The last letter my husband wrote before he died. My new housekeeper didn't know. She thought it was junk. She threw it away this morning, and now it's gone, and I can't." Her words dissolved into a sob that she tried to muffle with her hand. Jude looked back at his truck. Lily had her face pressed against the window, watching, waiting to see what kind of man her father was. He rolled up his sleeves. "Which dumpster?" he asked. The woman blinked at him. "What?" "You said Mrs. Chen. That's the jewelry store owner, right? So which dumpster is hers?" "The one on the left, but you don't have to." "Two people can search faster than one, ma'am." Jude walked to the dumpster, testing its weight. "Besides, you're about to break an ankle in those shoes. Just tell me what I'm looking for exactly." For a moment, Charlotte Whitmore, though Jude didn't know her name yet, just stared at him. Then something in her face shifted. Not quite hope, more like disbelief that someone had stopped. That someone had stayed. Jude nodded and reached into the dumpster. The smell hit him immediately, rotting vegetables, stale coffee, something sweet and rancid mixed together. He'd smelled worse, had been homeless for 3 months when Lily was a baby after her mother left, and he lost his job the same week. He'd dug through enough dumpsters looking for anything he could sell, or fix, or use. This was nothing. "Tell me if you see any jewelry store trash," he called over his shoulder. "Boxes, tissue paper, anything that looks like it came from inside." They worked in silence for several minutes, the only sounds the rustling of garbage bags and the occasional car passing on the main street. Snow kept falling, accumulating on Jude's shoulders, but he barely noticed. He was in the zone now, systematic checking each bag thoroughly before moving to the next. "Why are you helping me?" Charlotte asked suddenly. Jude glanced at her. She'd given up pretending she could help and was just standing there, hugging herself, watching him work. "My daughter asked me to," he said simply. "And she doesn't ask for much. Seemed like the least I could do." Most people would have kept driving. "Yeah, well." Jude pulled out another bag, checking the contents. Nothing. "Most people probably would have. But you didn't." He looked at her again. Really looked. Saw the way her hands shook. The way she held herself like she was trying not to fall apart. The way her expensive coat and shoes didn't match the absolute devastation in her eyes. "No, ma'am," he said quietly. "I didn't. They didn't find it." After 40 minutes of searching through every bag in 3 dumpsters, their hands numb from the cold, and their clothes reeking of garbage, the music box was nowhere to be found. Charlotte stood by the truck, swaying slightly, her face gray beneath the streetlight. Jude noticed she was shivering, not just from cold, but from exhaustion. "Ma'am, you got someone you can call?" he asked, brushing coffee grounds off his jacket. "Family a driver." Charlotte reached into her coat pocket, then let out a bitter laugh. "My phone. I left it at home when I ran out. I was so panicked, She pressed her fingers to her temples. "I don't even know what time it is." Lily had gotten out of the truck, despite Jude's earlier instructions, and now she tugged on Charlotte's coat sleeve. "You can come to our house. Daddy makes really good hot chocolate. Well, it's the powder kind from the store, but he puts extra marshmallows in it." "Lily," Jude started, "and we have a Christmas tree. Daddy and I made it ourselves." Charlotte looked down at the little girl, then at Jude, her eyes asking a question he could read clearly. "Are you serious?" Jude sighed. He thought about the state of his house, the peeling wallpaper, the couch he'd found on the curb and reupholstered with fabric from Goodwill, the kitchen table that wobbled no matter how many times he shimmed it. Then he thought about this woman standing in a back alley in designer heels, shaking like a leaf, with nowhere to go and no way to get there. "Just until you can reach your people," he said. "Get you warmed up, maybe use our phone." The drive to Jude's place took 12 minutes. Charlotte sat in the passenger seat while Lily chatted nonstop from the middle, telling her about school and her best friend Maya and the hamster in their classroom named Mr. Whiskers, who pooped every time someone held him. "That's so funny," Lily laughed, "every single time, like he's scared of hands or something." Charlotte made a soft sound that might have been a laugh, and Jude caught himself relaxing a fraction. His neighborhood was different from the one they'd just left. Here the houses were small, cramped close together, with chain-link fences, and cars parked on lawns because there weren't enough driveways. Christmas lights hung crooked on some porches. Others had no decorations at all. But people were outside neighbors, calling to each other, kids throwing snowballs, music playing from someone's open window despite the cold. Jude pulled into his driveway, which was really just 2 strips of concrete with grass growing between them. His house was a tiny one-story with faded blue siding and a front porch that tilted slightly to the left. He'd meant to fix that too. "We're home," Lily announced, already unbuckling. "Come on, miss, what's your name?" "Charlotte," the woman said softly. "Miss Charlotte, come see our tree." Jude unlocked the front door and flipped on the lights. He tried to see his home through Charlotte's eyes and felt his jaw tighten. The living room was barely big enough for the couch and the small TV on a milk crate. The walls needed paint. The ceiling had a water stain in the corner from when the upstairs neighbor's toilet leaked last spring. But it was clean. Everything was clean. He'd made sure of that after Lily's mom left. Being poor didn't mean being dirty. Charlotte stepped inside carefully as if the floor might give way beneath her expensive shoes. Her eyes went immediately to the Christmas tree in the corner, and Jude braced himself for her reaction. It wasn't a real tree. It was a large branch he'd found in the park, spray-painted white, stuck in a coffee can filled with rocks. Lily had decorated it with paper snowflakes she'd cut at school, cotton balls glued to look like snow, and ornaments made from bottle caps that Jude had helped her paint gold and silver. At the top was a star made from aluminum foil wrapped around cardboard. "I made the star," Lily said, proudly pointing, "and Daddy helped with the silver bottle caps because my hands are too small to punch holes in them. See, we used a hammer and a nail." Charlotte's hand went to her mouth. For a terrible moment, Jude thought she was horrified. Then he saw her eyes were filling with tears again. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "Really?" Lily beamed. "Maya said it looked like trash, but I told her trash can be beautiful if you love it enough." Jude cleared his throat, his chest tight. "Here, ma'am, let me take your coat. You can sit by the heater." He gestured to the space heater in the corner, the only thing keeping the house remotely warm. His landlord was supposed to fix the central heating, but kept putting it off. Charlotte let him take the fur coat, now ruined with stains. Underneath, she wore a cream-colored cashmere sweater and wool slacks. Even in her disheveled state, she looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine. She looked completely out of place in his living room. Lily grabbed her hand. "You have to sit in the special spot. It's closest to the heater." She pulled Charlotte toward the wooden chair that did indeed creak ominously when Charlotte sat down. "See? And if you get cold, we have a blanket. Well, it's Daddy's sleeping bag that got a hole, but he sewed it, so now it's a blanket." Jude went to the kitchen and put the kettle on. Through the doorway, he could hear Lily still chattering, telling Charlotte about every decoration on the tree and the story behind each one. Charlotte was making soft sounds of interest, actually listening, not just waiting for the kid to stop talking like most adults did. When he brought out 2 mugs of instant hot chocolate using the least chipped mugs he owned, Charlotte took hers with both hands like it was fine china. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Got any dietary restrictions?" Jude asked. "I was gonna make dinner." Charlotte blinked. "Dinner? Well, yeah, it's past 6. Lily needs to eat." He paused. "You're welcome to join us. It's nothing fancy." Nothing fancy turned out to be bean and sausage stew, something Jude could make cheap and stretch for days. He'd learned to cook out of necessity after Lily's mom left watching cooking videos on his phone while Lily napped. The sausage was the cheap kind from the dollar store, and he'd bulked it up with beans and whatever vegetables he'd gotten on sale. But he'd learned to season it right, and when he lifted the lid on the pot, the smell that filled the kitchen was rich and savory. Lily set the table with intense concentration, giving Charlotte the pink plastic spoon that was her favorite. "This is the princess spoon," she explained seriously. "It's the most special one because it's pink, and pink is the color of love, and also cotton candy." Charlotte accepted the pink spoon like it was sterling silver. They ate together at Jude's wobbly kitchen table, which he'd covered with a tablecloth Lily had made by gluing Christmas-themed napkins to an old sheet. It was lumpy and weird, but Lily loved it, so it stayed. Jude watched Charlotte take her first bite and saw her eyes widen slightly. "This is good," she said, sounding surprised. "Daddy's the best cooker in the world," Lily said through a mouthful of beans. "He makes everything taste like a restaurant." "Not quite," Jude said, but he felt warmth in his chest. Charlotte took another bite, then another. "When was the last time I ate something homemade?" she murmured more to herself than to them. "You don't cook?" Lily asked. "I have a chef," Charlotte said, then seemed to hear how that sounded. "I mean, I used to cook. A long time ago, my husband and I used to cook together on Sundays, but after he died, I just stopped." Lily reached over and patted Charlotte's hand, leaving a small smudge of bean sauce. "That's okay. Daddy can teach you. He taught me how to make scrambled eggs, and I only burned them twice." For the first time since Jude had seen her in that alley, Charlotte smiled, really smiled. It transformed her face, made her look younger, less like a broken statue, and more like a person. They finished dinner with Lily filling every silence with stories about school, about Mr. Whiskers the pooping hamster, about how she wanted to be a veterinarian when she grew up, or maybe a singer, or maybe both, because why not? Charlotte laughed actual laughs at Lily's dramatic reenactment of how Mr. Whiskers had escaped his cage, and the whole class had to search for him, finally finding him asleep in someone's backpack. And then Tyler screamed so loud the teacher next door came running. Lily dissolved into giggles, and Charlotte was laughing too, her shoulders shaking, her hand pressed to her chest. Jude cleared the plates, watching them from the kitchen. Charlotte was actually showing Lily how to hold a spoon properly. Like this, pinch it between your thumb and fingers, like you're conducting an orchestra, using the pink plastic spoon to demonstrate. Lily was trying to copy her, looking intensely serious, her tongue sticking out in concentration. And Charlotte was patient with her, adjusting Lily's grip, gently praising her when she got it right. It struck Jude then this woman had eaten at tables that probably cost more than his truck, had probably been served by actual waitstaff in her own home, and here she was teaching his daughter etiquette with a dollar store spoon at a table covered in glued napkins, looking more present and alive than she had all evening. "How's that hot chocolate, Miss Charlotte?" Jude asked, bringing out a plate of store-brand cookies he'd been saving for Christmas. "It's perfect," Charlotte said, and the way she said it, Jude knew she wasn't just talking about the cocoa. After dinner, they moved back to the living room. Lily sprawled on the floor with her coloring books humming tunelessly while she worked on a picture of a reindeer that looked more like a dog with antlers. Charlotte sat in the creaky chair holding her second mug of hot chocolate, staring at the makeshift Christmas tree like it held answers to questions she hadn't asked yet. Jude settled on the couch, giving her space, but staying close enough to talk. He'd learned over the years that silence was sometimes better than questions that people told you what they needed to when they were ready. Charlotte was ready. "I suppose you're wondering why a woman my age was digging through garbage like a raccoon," she said, her voice soft. Lily looked up. "Raccoons are cute, though." "Lily, keep coloring, baby. Jude said gently. Charlotte's lips twitched in something almost like a smile. You said you were looking for a music box, Jude prompted, one with a letter inside. Yes. Charlotte set down her mug, her hands trembling slightly. My husband Richard died 3 years ago. Pancreatic cancer. 6 months from diagnosis to... She swallowed hard. He was 72. We'd been married for 48 years. Jude did the math. She'd been young when they married, maybe 22 or 23. Near the end, when he couldn't get out of bed anymore, he wrote me letters. Charlotte continued, one every day for the last month of his life. He'd write them in the morning, and I'd find them on my pillow at night. Little notes about memories we'd shared, things he loved about me, jokes that only we understood. Her voice was steady, but tears were sliding down her cheeks now. She didn't wipe them away. The last letter was different, longer. He wrote it the day before he died, and he must have known it was the end, because he put it in that music box. It was from our first Christmas together, something he'd bought at a flea market because we were so broke back then we couldn't afford real presents. The music box was already broken when he bought it, but I loved it anyway because he'd chosen it for me. Lily had stopped coloring. She was listening, her eyes wide. What did the letter say? She whispered. Charlotte's laugh was watery. I don't know, sweetheart. I've never opened it. Jude leaned forward. Why not? Because as long as I don't read it, he hasn't said goodbye yet. Charlotte pressed her fingers to her eyes. I know that's foolish. I know he's gone. But that letter is the last piece of him, the last words he'll ever say to me, and once I read it, she shook her head. I kept the music box on my nightstand. Never touched it, just looked at it every morning and every night. It was my ritual. My way of still having him close. What happened? Jude asked. I hired a new housekeeper 3 weeks ago. Mrs. Chen recommended her young woman, very efficient, very thorough. Too thorough. Charlotte's voice went bitter. I went out yesterday to handle some business with my lawyers. When I came back, my bedroom was immaculate. Everything dusted, organized, cleaned, including my nightstand, which was now empty. She threw it away, Jude said. She thought it was trash. A broken music box, battered and worthless. How could she know? Charlotte's hands fisted in her lap. I didn't even notice until this morning. I went to look at it like always, and it was gone. I asked Maria, the housekeeper, and she got so flustered, said she thought it was junk, said she'd put it in the trash collection that went out this morning. And you went looking for it. Jude finished. I called the waste management company. They said if it was collected this morning from my neighborhood, it would be sorted at the facility tonight, but mixed with other trash. I'd never find it. But then I remembered Maria had also cleaned out my husband's old study. She'd thrown away some papers, some books. I called my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, asked if she'd seen any bags from my house mixed with hers. She said yes. Her housekeeper had found some by mistake and put them with the jewelry store's evening trash. Charlotte looked at Jude with exhausted, desperate eyes. So I ran. I didn't even think to grab my phone or change my shoes. I just ran to that alley and started searching because that box is all I have left of him. Not the house we bought together. My children are trying to sell it. Not the company he built. They've already restructured it. Not even the photographs. They just make me sad. But that letter, her voice broke. That letter still has words I've never heard. It's the only thing that makes him not completely gone. The room was quiet except for the rattle of the space heater. Then Lily stood up, walked to her bedroom, and came back carrying a stuffed bear that had seen better days. One eye was missing, replaced with a button. The fur was matted in places. The seam under one arm had been stitched and restitched so many times it looked like a scar. She climbed into Charlotte's lap without asking permission and pressed the bear into her hands. This is Sir Theodore, Lily said seriously. He's my most special bear. Daddy gave him to me when I was a baby, and he knows how to keep secrets really good. He kept my secret about breaking Daddy's coffee mug, and he kept my secret about being scared of the dark, and he can keep your letters secret too, until you find it. Charlotte stared down at the worn bear, then at the little girl in her lap, and something in her face crumbled. She wrapped her arms around Lily and sobbed deep, shaking sobs that seemed to come from her bones. Lily patted her back. It's okay, Miss Charlotte. It's okay to be sad. Daddy says crying is just love trying to get out because you have too much inside. Over Lily's head, Charlotte's eyes met Jude's. He saw grief there, yes, but also something else. Something like wonder that this child who had so little was offering her most precious possession to a stranger. Jude's throat was tight, but he managed to speak. Lily, why don't you go brush your teeth, baby? It's getting late. But Daddy, Go on. I'll come tuck you in a minute. Lily scrambled down, then paused. She stood on her tiptoes and kissed Charlotte's cheek. Don't worry. We'll find your letter. Daddy's really good at finding lost things. He found my shoe in the park once when I thought a bird stole it. After Lily disappeared into the bathroom, Charlotte wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Your daughter is remarkable. Yeah, Jude said quietly. She is. You've raised her alone. Her mama left when she was 8 months old, decided she didn't sign up for the poor life after all. Jude said it matter-of-factly without bitterness. He'd long since made peace with it. Been just me and Lily ever since. Charlotte looked around the small, shabby room with new eyes. And you've done this. She gestured at everything on your own, working, raising her, keeping this home together. We manage, Jude said. You do more than manage. That child is happy, really happy. She feels safe enough to be generous with strangers. Do you know how rare that is? Before Jude could respond, he heard Lily call from the bathroom. Daddy, I'm ready for tucking. Be right back, he told Charlotte. He tucked Lily into her bed, a twin mattress on a frame he'd built himself from scrap wood. The blankets were mismatched, donated from the church charity drive last winter, but Lily had arranged her stuffed animals on top in a specific order that she swore was very important. Is Miss Charlotte going to be okay? Lily whispered. I think so, baby. She's so sad, Daddy. Sadder than when Maya's goldfish died. Yes, she is. But we're going to help her, right? That's what we do. We help people. Jude kissed her forehead. That's what we do. When he came back to the living room, Charlotte was standing. She'd put on her ruined fur coat and was clutching Sir Theodore the bear like a lifeline. I should call for my driver, she said. I've imposed enough. Hold on. Jude went to the hallway closet and pulled out the garbage bag he grabbed from the alley earlier, the one he'd thrown in his truck without really looking at it. He'd meant to sort through it later. Sometimes people threw out perfectly good stuff, things he could fix and sell. He set it on the floor and opened it. Charlotte gasped. There, nestled among some papers and what looked like old books, was a wooden box about 6 inches square, dark walnut with a crack along the lid. Is that? Charlotte couldn't finish the sentence. Jude pulled it out carefully and handed it to her. I think when I was helping you search, I must have grabbed this bag without realizing. It's been in my truck this whole time. Charlotte's hands shook as she took it. She turned it over, examining the crack, the tarnished brass hinges, the small keyhole that no longer had a key. Then she tried to open it. It wouldn't budge. The mechanism is jammed, she said, her voice tight with panic. It's broken worse than before. I can't get it open. May I? Jude held out his hand. Charlotte hesitated, clutching the box to her chest, like someone might steal it. Then slowly she handed it over. Jude examined it under the light, turning it carefully, testing the hinges. The wood swollen from moisture, probably from being in the dumpster. And yeah, the internal mechanism is bent. He looked up at her. But I can fix it. You can? I'm a mechanic by day, but I fix just about anything to make extra money. Furniture, appliances, toys, whatever people bring me. They don't call me Golden Hands Brooks for nothing around here. Can you fix it tonight? Charlotte asked desperately. Please, I need to know the letter's still inside. I need to know it's okay. Jude looked at the clock. It was nearly 9. Lily would be asleep soon. He had work at 6 in the morning. Yeah, he said, I can fix it tonight. Jude's workshop was a corner of the basement that his landlord let him use in exchange for fixing things around the building. It wasn't much a workbench made from an old door laid across 2 sawhorses, a pegboard on the wall hung with tools he'd collected over years, and a desk lamp he'd rewired when someone threw it out. But it was his space where broken things became whole again. Charlotte followed him down the narrow stairs, still clutching Sir Theodore. The basement was cold, and Jude plugged in a small heater the same kind as upstairs. You can sit there, he said, pointing to a stool he'd made from a bar stool someone had left on the curb. He'd sanded it restained. It replaced the torn vinyl seat with fabric from an old jacket. Charlotte sat watching as Jude cleared his workbench and set the music box down under the bright light. He pulled out a magnifying glass on an adjustable arm, positioning it over the box. Talk me through what you see, Charlotte said quietly. Jude glanced at her surprised. Most people just wanted the end result. Well, he said, the main problem is here. He pointed to the brass hinges. See how they're corroded? That's from age, probably. But the real issue is the latch mechanism inside. When you try to open it, you're actually triggering a small lever that's supposed to release the catch, But that lever is bent. He angled the light to show her. See that? Charlotte leaned closer. I see it. And the wood here has absorbed moisture, so it's swollen. That's putting pressure on the brass fittings, which means even if I straighten the lever, the box might not open unless I can relieve some of that pressure. How do you relieve it? Jude smiled slightly. Very carefully. He selected a small, flathead screwdriver from his pegboard, the kind used for eyeglasses. Then he chose a pair of needle-nose pliers, a tiny file, and a bottle of wood oil that was nearly empty. First, I'm going to try to work some oil into the seams, he explained, applying small drops along the crack in the lid. This should help the wood release some of that moisture and shrink back to its normal size. But it takes time. How much time? For it to really work, a few hours. But I don't think you want to wait that long. Charlotte shook her head. Then we do it the hard way. Jude picked up the screwdriver. I'm going to try to access the lever mechanism from the side. There's usually a small panel. Yeah, here it is. He pointed to an almost invisible seam in the wood. If I can pop this panel off without damaging it, I can reach the lever and straighten it manually. He worked in silence for several minutes, his tongue caught between his teeth in concentration. The panel was held in place by tiny nails that had rusted in place. He had to work each one loose individually, using the screwdriver to pry gently, then the pliers to extract the nail once it was loose enough. Where did you learn to do this? Charlotte asked. Taught myself mostly. YouTube library books, trial and error. My granddad was a carpenter, but he died before he could teach me much. Jude paused, considering. I liked figuring out how things worked, how they were put together, and when you're broke and something breaks, you either learn to fix it or you do without. That's a valuable skill. Keeps the lights on. Jude got the last nail out and carefully removed the panel. Inside, he could see the brass mechanism, delicate as watch gears. Okay, there's the problem. He used his phone flashlight to illuminate the interior while he worked with the needle-nose pliers, gently grasping the bent lever and straightening it. His hands were steady despite their size, precise despite the calluses. Charlotte watched him work this man she'd met only hours ago, treating her broken treasure with the same care he probably gave everything in his life, his daughter, his home, his work. You know what this reminds me of? Jude said, not looking up from his work. About 6 months ago, Mrs. Patterson from down the street brought me her husband's pocket watch. He'd died in Korea back in the 50s. She'd kept that watch running for 60-some years, but it finally gave out. Could you fix it? Took me 3 weeks, and I had to order parts from a guy in Ohio, but yeah, got it ticking again. Jude smiled at the memory. She cried when she heard it, said it sounded like her husband's heartbeat. That's beautiful. Point is, Jude continued carefully testing the lever. Things that matter to people aren't always valuable to anyone else. That watch was worth maybe $50, but to her, priceless. Same as this box. He looked up at Charlotte. I get it. I get why you were digging through that dumpster. Charlotte's eyes were wet again. Do you? My mama died when I was 19. Ovarian cancer. Didn't have insurance, so by the time they caught it, it was too late. Jude's voice was steady, but Charlotte could hear the old pain underneath. Before she passed, she made me a quilt. Took her 6 months working on it between treatments. It wasn't fancy, just scraps from old clothes, pieces of my baby blanket, some fabric from her church dresses, but she put a piece of paper in the lining with a note. What did it say? I don't know. I've never opened the lining to read it. Jude's hands paused, because once I read it, that's it. That's the last thing she'll ever say to me. So, yeah, I get it. They sat in silence for a moment, two people who'd lost the most important voices in their lives and weren't ready to hear them say goodbye. Then Lily's voice called down the stairs. Daddy, I can't sleep. Can I come down? Come on, baby. Jude called back. Lily appeared in her pajamas hand-me-downs from the church that were too big, making her look even smaller. She climbed onto the stool next to Charlotte, leaning against her like it was the most natural thing in the world. What you doing? She asked. Fixing Miss Charlotte's music box. Can I help? Sure. Blow on this screw right here while I tighten it. Keep it from getting too hot. Lily leaned forward and blew gentle puffs of air on the tiny screw Jude was working on. Her cheeks puffed out like a chipmunk. Charlotte found herself smiling at the serious concentration on the little girl's face. Is the letter okay inside? Lily whispered. Won't know until we open it, Jude said. But I think so. The box stayed pretty dry. He worked for another 20 minutes with Lily providing help, that consisted mostly of handing him the wrong tools and asking questions about every single step. But he answered each question patiently, showed her how the mechanism worked, let her hold the magnifying glass to see the tiny gears. Charlotte watched them together and felt something crack open in her chest. This was what she'd missed. Not in her own childhood her parents had been loving enough, but with her children, she'd been so focused on giving them everything money could buy that she'd forgotten to give them this patient attention. This unrushed time, this teaching of small, unimportant things that somehow mattered most. "Okay," Jude said finally. "Moment of truth. Miss Charlotte, you want to do the honors." He held out the music box. Charlotte took it with trembling hands. "Just lift the lid gently," Jude instructed. "Don't force it." Charlotte placed her thumbs on either side of the lid and lifted. It opened. Inside, nestled in the faded velvet lining, was a piece of paper folded into quarters. The edges were yellowed, but it was intact, whole, and as the lid opened fully, something inside the box clicked. The mechanism engaged. Music began to play. It was Silent Night, thin and tinny and slightly off-key because the pins on the cylinder were bent and the comb was missing a few teeth. It sounded like it was being played underwater or in a dream, but it was complete, whole, perfect in its imperfection. Charlotte pressed her hand to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Lily started humming along slightly off-key herself, her voice blending with the mechanical melody in a way that was somehow exactly right. And Jude stood there in his basement workshop under his salvaged lamp, watching a 6-year-old girl and a 70-year-old woman listen to a broken music box play a Christmas carol, and thought maybe this was what people meant when they talked about Christmas miracles. Not the big impossible things, just the small moments when broken things became beautiful again. The drive to Charlotte's house took them into a different universe. Jude followed the GPS directions Charlotte gave him, watching the neighborhoods transform as they went. The houses got bigger, set farther back from the road. The streetlights got brighter. The cars parked in driveways cost more than he'd make in 5 years. Lily was asleep in the middle seat, her head on Charlotte's shoulder, still clutching Sir Theodore. Charlotte had one arm around her, the music box clutched to her chest with her other hand. "Turn left at the stone pillars," Charlotte said quietly, not wanting to wake Lily. Jude turned and his breath caught. The gate was wrought iron, maybe 12 feet tall, with an elaborate W worked into the design. It opened automatically as they approached, probably triggered by a sensor. The driveway was lined with lights embedded in the ground, leading up to a house that looked like something from a movie. It wasn't just big, it was massive. 3 stories of pale stone, with columns flanking the entrance windows that glowed warm yellow from inside dormers and balconies, and architectural details that Jude couldn't name, but could appreciate. The lawn was perfect despite the snow, professionally landscaped with bushes shaped into geometric forms. Jude pulled his beat-up truck around the circular driveway past a fountain that was still running even in winter and stopped in front of the entrance. He'd never felt more out of place in his life. The front door opened before they'd even gotten out of the truck, spilling golden light across the steps. A man in an actual butler's uniform came hurrying out, followed by 3 other people, 2 men in their 40s and a woman about the same age, all dressed like they'd just come from some fancy dinner party. "Mother!" The woman called out, her voice sharp with what Jude recognized as performative concern. "Where have you been? We've been worried sick." Charlotte's whole body tensed beside him. The 2 men reached the truck first. The taller one opened Charlotte's door without even glancing at Jude. "Jesus Christ, Mother, you smell like garbage. What the hell happened? Are you hurt?" "I'm fine, Philip," Charlotte said, but her voice had changed. It was colder now, more formal. The warmth Jude had heard in his kitchen was gone. "We were about to call the police," the woman said. She was thin blonde, dripping with jewelry that probably cost more than Jude's truck. "Your phone was off. You didn't leave a note." "I wasn't aware I needed to check in with my children before leaving my own house, Victoria," Charlotte said dryly. The shorter man he had Charlotte's eyes, Jude noticed, finally looked at Jude. His gaze traveled over the truck, over Jude's work clothes, over Jude himself, and something dismissive settled into his expression. "Did this man hurt you?" he asked Charlotte, but he was staring at Jude when he said it. Jude's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice even. "No, sir. Just gave your mother a ride home." "A ride home? From where exactly?" Philip asked, moving closer to the truck. "What were you doing with our mother?" Charlotte climbed out of the truck, carefully still holding the music box. Lily stirred but didn't wake. These people helped me, Philip. I suggest you show some gratitude instead of acting like I've been kidnapped. Helped you with what? Victoria demanded. Mother, your coat is ruined. Your hair is a mess you're wearing. Is that garbage on your shoes? The butler had reached them now, along with a woman in a housekeeper's uniform who looked terrified. Mrs. Whitmore, I tried to find you, the housekeeper started. Not now, Maria, Charlotte said sharply. Jude got out of the truck and walked around to the passenger side, gently lifting Lily into his arms. She stirred, mumbling something about Mr. Whiskers, but settled against his shoulder. The shorter man, Charlotte's other son, Jude, assumed, stepped between Jude and Charlotte. What's going on here? Mother, do you know this man? This is Jude Brooks, Charlotte said, and his daughter Lily. They found me tonight when I was looking for something I'd lost, and they took me into their home and fed me and helped me, which is more than any of you have done in months. Fed you? Victoria's voice went up an octave. You ate at a stranger's house, Mother. You could have been poisoned or robbed or shown basic human kindness. Charlotte's voice was ice. Yes, Victoria, I experienced that novel concept tonight. Philip pulled out his wallet, his movements sharp with irritation. He extracted a thick wad of bills and held them out to Jude. Here, for your trouble. That should more than cover whatever she ate and your gas money. $2,000. That's generous. Jude looked at the money, then at Philip's face. He saw the assumption there, the dismissal, the expectation that Jude would snatch the cash and leave, that this was a transaction, nothing more. No thank you, Jude said quietly. Philip blinked. What? I said no thank you. I didn't help your mother for money. Everyone wants money, the shorter son said flatly. Then I guess I'm not everyone. Jude adjusted Lily in his arms. She was getting heavy, but he'd carry her all night before he'd take a dime from these people. Victoria laughed a sharp sound. Oh, how noble. What do you want then? A reward, media attention, a chance to… I want to get my daughter home to bed, Jude interrupted. That's what I want. He turned to Charlotte. Ma'am, thank you for sharing dinner with us. Lily really enjoyed meeting you. You take care of yourself, okay? Charlotte's eyes were wide, shining with something Jude couldn't quite read. Wait, but Philip was already steering her toward the house. Come on, Mother, let's get you cleaned up. Whatever adventure you had tonight is over. Victoria was on her phone, probably calling someone. The butler was hovering, trying to take Charlotte's coat. The housekeeper was apologizing in rapid Spanish. Jude walked back to his truck, opened the door one-handed, and carefully positioned Lily in her seat, buckling her in. She didn't wake up, just curled on her side with Sir Theodore tucked under her chin. He was about to get in the driver's seat when he heard Charlotte's voice, sharp and loud enough to cut through the chaos. Stop it, all of you, just stop. Everyone froze. Charlotte stood on the steps, gripping the music box so hard her knuckles were white. She looked at her children, her perfectly dressed, perfectly successful, perfectly cold children, and Jude saw something shift in her face. You want to know where I was? She said, her voice shaking. I was digging through garbage. Literally, I was on my hands and knees in an alley searching through dumpsters because Maria threw away the last letter your father ever wrote to me. Maria made a small sound of distress. I was desperate and filthy and terrified I'd lost the only thing I had left of him, and not one of you even noticed I was gone. Not one of you called to check on me. You only noticed when I didn't show up for your goddamn dinner party. Mother, Philip started. And this man, Charlotte gestured at Jude, this stranger stopped his truck in the snow. He got out and helped me search, even though it meant getting dirty and cold and missing his own dinner. He took me to his home, his tiny, humble, beautiful home, and he fed me and kept me warm and fixed the thing I thought was broken forever. She was crying now, but her voice didn't waver. Do you know what I had for dinner tonight? Bean stew and hot chocolate made with powder. Do you know what else I had? Conversation, laughter. A child who shared her most precious stuffed animal with me because she thought I needed comfort. I felt more like a person in that small house than I have felt in this mansion in 3 years. Victoria's face had gone pale. Mother, you're upset. You're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking more clearly than I have in a long time. Charlotte descended the steps, walking past her children toward Jude's truck. Philip, you offered this man money for his trouble. Do you know what trouble he went to? He spent 2 hours in his basement workshop repairing this music box, using tools he's collected over years of making do with what he has, using skills he taught himself because he had to. He didn't ask for payment. He didn't expect anything except maybe a thank you. She reached. Jude looked up at him with those fierce blue eyes. You are worth 10 of them, she said quietly. and your daughter is the most beautiful soul I've met in longer than I can remember." Jude's throat was tight. "She liked you too, ma'am." Charlotte glanced at the sleeping child in the truck, then back at her own children standing on the steps of their mother's mansion, looking uncomfortable and angry and confused. "I'll be in touch," she told Jude, "if that's all right with you." "Yes, ma'am," Jude said. "That would be fine." He got in his truck and started the engine. In his rear-view mirror, he saw Charlotte standing in her driveway alone, despite being surrounded by family and staff, clutching a music box to her chest like a shield. He saw her children closing in around her, already talking, already managing, already trying to control the narrative, and he saw Charlotte push past them all and walk into her mansion without looking back. Christmas morning arrived cold and bright. Jude woke at 5:30 like always, his internal clock programmed by years of early shifts. He lay in bed for a moment, listening to the radiator clank and the sound of his neighbor's dog barking. Through his thin walls, he could hear Mrs. Patterson's TV already on. She never slept much anymore, not since her husband died. He got up, pulled on his robe, a flannel thing Lily had picked out at Goodwill because it had snowmen on it, and walked to the kitchen. The coffee maker was already set to brew. He'd prepped it last night. While it gurgled to life, he stood at the window and watched snow fall over the neighborhood. Christmas. When Lily's mother left, the first Christmas had been hell. He'd worked a double shift on Christmas Eve, came home to a dark apartment and a baby who wouldn't stop crying, and he'd sat on the floor of the nursery at 2 a.m, wondering what the hell he was doing. How was he supposed to raise a daughter alone? How was he supposed to give her the magic of Christmas when he could barely afford diapers? But he'd figured it out, the way he always figured things out. He heard Lily's door open, heard her feet padding down the hallway, and turned with a smile as she appeared in the kitchen doorway. "Merry Christmas, Daddy." She was still in her pajamas, her hair sticking up in about 15 different directions, her eyes bright with the kind of excitement only kids on Christmas morning could manage. "Merry Christmas, baby girl." He scooped her up, kissed her forehead. "You wake up early." "I tried to sleep, but I couldn't. Can we open presents now? Please, please, please." "Let me get my coffee first. You know Daddy's not human until coffee." "You always say that." She giggled, squirming down from his arms and racing to the living room. Jude followed with his coffee mug, the one Lily had made him at school, decorated with fingerprint reindeer, and the words, "Rold's Best Dad," because she'd run out of room. The presents under their makeshift tree were wrapped in newspaper comics and tied with string because wrapping paper was expensive and newspaper was free. There were 4 boxes, total 3 for Lily. One for him that she'd wrapped herself with approximately an entire roll of tape. "Okay," Jude said, settling on the couch. "Which one first?" Lily grabbed the biggest box, shook it near her ear. "This one." She tore into it with the efficiency of a 6-year-old on a mission paper flying everywhere. Inside was a set of colored pencils, the 64-count box with the built-in sharpener, the one she'd been staring at every time they went to the store. "Daddy, Daddy, it's the big box, the one with all the colors." She threw her arms around his neck, nearly spilling his coffee. "Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're welcome, baby." The second box held a new notebook with a purple cover and her name written on the front in Jude's careful handwriting. The third box was the gloves he'd knitted, lumpy, slightly different sizes, but functional and warm. Lily put them on immediately. Their perfect look they match. They didn't match at all, but Jude wasn't going to tell her that. "My turn," he said, picking up his present. Lily bounced on her toes, watching him unwrap it. Inside was a picture frame made from popsicle sticks painted gold, with a drawing of the 2 of them inside. In Lily's artwork, they were holding hands under a rainbow, and Jude was about 3 times bigger than the house in the background. At the bottom, in her wobbly handwriting, "Daddy and me forever." Jude stared at it, his vision blurring slightly. "Do you like it?" Lily asked anxiously. "I made it at school, but I had to hide it so you wouldn't see. And Mrs. Patterson let me use her glue gun for the popsicle sticks, but she did the hot part because I'm not allowed to touch hot things." "I love it," Jude managed. "It's the best present I've ever gotten." "Really? Really?" They spent the morning the way they always did, Lily coloring with her new pencils, while Jude made pancakes from a box mix, adding chocolate chips he'd been saving in the freezer. They ate breakfast in their pajamas, watching a Christmas movie on TV that cut to commercial every 10 minutes. It was perfect. It was everything Jude wanted to give her. Not stuff, but time, presence, love. But around 11, as he was cleaning up the kitchen, Lily came in looking thoughtful. "Daddy?" "Yeah, baby. Do you think Miss Charlotte is having a good Christmas?" Jude dried his hands on a dish towel, considering. "I don't know. I hope so. She seemed really sad yesterday, even when the music box played. She smiled, but her eyes were still sad." Kids, Jude thought, notice everything. "Sometimes people are sad even when good things happen," he said carefully, "because they're remembering someone who's not there anymore. Like how you get quiet on Grandma's birthday." "Yeah, like that." Lily was silent for a moment, chewing her bottom lip. "I think we should call her." "We don't have her number, Lily." "We could look it up. You can find anyone on your phone." "You found the library's number when I wanted to know if they had hamster books." Jude smiled despite himself. "That's different. And Miss Charlotte might be busy with her family." "Her family didn't even say thank you." Lily's voice rose indignant. "That tall man was mean to you and nobody gave her a hug. We give better hugs than they do." She wasn't wrong. "Tell you what," Jude said, "if Miss Charlotte wants to see us again, she'll find a way. And if she doesn't, that's okay too. Sometimes people come into our lives just for a little while to teach us something or help us with something, and then they move on. That doesn't mean it wasn't important." Lily considered this, then nodded slowly. "Okay, but I hope she comes back. I want her to meet Mr. Whiskers. He'd make her laugh." "The pooping hamster." "Yeah, she needs to laugh more. Her face looks like it forgot how." Meanwhile, across town, in a house that could fit Jude's home inside it 15 times, Charlotte Whitmore sat at a dining table that stretched almost 20 feet long. The table was set with china that had been in her husband's family for 6 generations. Crystal glasses caught the light from the chandelier overhead. Serving dishes held roasted turkey, with all the trimmings prepared by her personal chef and presented by staff wearing white gloves. Her children were there, Philip and his wife, Margaret Victoria, and her husband Thomas, her younger son David, and his girlfriend, whose name Charlotte kept forgetting. Her grandchildren, 3 of them, were at the kids' table in the next room, being watched by a nanny. Everyone was dressed beautifully. Everyone was polite. Everyone was making conversation about stocks and real estate and someone's vacation to Monaco. And Charlotte felt like she was suffocating. "Mother, are you listening?" Victoria's voice cut through her thoughts. "What?" "I was saying that we've been talking, and we think you should consider moving to something smaller. This house is too much for you to maintain, and the property taxes alone." "We're not selling the house, Victoria." "I didn't say sell, just downsize. There are some lovely condos downtown, very secure, much more appropriate for someone your age." Someone your age. Like she was already halfway to the grave and needed to be managed. "I'll think about it," Charlotte said, which was her way of saying absolutely not. The meal continued. The turkey was perfect, moist, expertly seasoned, probably cost $200. Charlotte took a bite and tasted nothing. She thought about bean stew in a cramped kitchen, about a little girl blowing on a screw to help it cool, about Jude's patient hands fixing something that everyone else would have thrown away. "Are you feeling all right, Mother?" Philip asked. "You seem distracted." "I'm fine." "About last night," David started. "I don't want to discuss last night. But Mother, we need to talk about what happened. You disappeared for hours, came back with a stranger." "That stranger showed me more kindness than I've received from any of you in months," Charlotte said quietly. The table went silent. Margaret cleared her throat. "I'm sure that's not fair." "Isn't it?" Charlotte set down her fork. "When was the last time any of you asked me how I was doing? Really asked and waited for a real answer? When was the last time any of you sat with me for more than 20 minutes without checking your phones?" "We're busy, Mother," Victoria said. "We have lives, careers." "I know. And I'm just the old woman in the big house waiting to die so you can divide up the inheritance." "That's not true." But David's face had gone red. Charlotte looked around the table at her children, these adults she'd raised and loved and tried her best for, and saw strangers. Successful strangers who called on holidays and remembered her birthday, but didn't know her favorite flower had changed, or that she'd started painting again, or that sometimes she went 3 days without speaking to anyone except the housekeeper. She thought about Lily asking if she'd found treasure, about the casual way Jude had included her in their evening, no fuss, no performance, about feeling like she mattered not because of what she owned, but because of who she was. "Excuse me," she said, standing. "Mother, we haven't had dessert. I'm not hungry." She walked out of the dining room, ignoring the voices calling after her. She went to her bedroom, closed the door, and sat on her bed. The music box was on her nightstand right where it belonged. She'd cleaned it carefully last night, wiped away the grime, polished the wood. It looked almost new except for that crack in the lid and the scuffs that gave it character. She hadn't opened the letter yet. Couldn't quite bring herself to do it, but she picked up her phone and called her lawyer. "Harold, yes, it's Charlotte. I need you to find someone for me. Jude Brooks. He lives somewhere in the north end of town. I don't have an address, but he has a daughter named Lily, about 6 years old. He works at an auto shop. Yes, I'll wait." 5 minutes later, she had an address. Charlotte changed out of her silk dress into wool slacks and a cashmere sweater. She told her driver to prepare the car, ignoring Victoria's protests that they hadn't finished dinner, that it was Christmas, that this was ridiculous. "Where are you going?" Philip demanded. "To spend Christmas with people who actually want me there," Charlotte said, and she walked out of her mansion, down her perfectly lit driveway, and into the car that would take her back to a neighborhood where the houses were small, and the Christmas trees were made from broken branches, and love was something you could actually feel. Jude was washing the lunch dishes, leftover pancakes, and some spaghetti he'd made from the pantry when Lily, who'd been coloring at the kitchen table, suddenly shouted, "Daddy, there's a fancy car outside." "A what?" "A really fancy car, like the ones in movies." Jude dried his hands and looked out the window. Sure enough, a black Mercedes was pulling up to his curb. It looked absurdly out of place on his street, like a penguin in a desert. "Who's that?" Lily was already running to the front window. "I don't know, baby. Stay here." Jude opened the front door, just as Charlotte Whitmore stepped out of the Mercedes, carrying 2 shopping bags that looked expensive even from a distance. She'd changed clothes since last night, looked more casual now, though her casual probably still cost more than his monthly rent. She saw him on the porch and smiled, a real smile, the kind he'd seen last night at his kitchen table. "I hope I'm not intruding," she called out. "It's Miss Charlotte." Lily squeezed past Jude's legs and ran down the porch steps in her socks, launching herself at Charlotte with the confidence of a child who'd never learned to fear rejection. Charlotte caught her laughing, nearly dropping her bags. "Hello, sweetheart, Merry Christmas." "Merry Christmas. Did you find out what the letter says? Did the music box keep playing? Did you?" "Lily, let the woman breathe," Jude said, walking down the steps. "Ma'am, is everything okay?" "Everything's fine. Better than fine, actually." Charlotte set Lily down, but kept hold of her hand. "I just realized I was spending Christmas with people who made me feel poor despite my bank account, when I could be spending it with people who made me feel rich despite theirs." Jude blinked. "Are you saying you want to?" "I'm saying I have 2 bags of food that my chef prepared this morning. Turkey stuffing, cranberry sauce, 3 kinds of pie, and no one I actually want to share it with. And I was hoping maybe—" She looked almost nervous. "Maybe I could spend the afternoon here, if that's not too presumptuous." Lily was jumping up and down. "Yes, yes, 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 Daddy, can she please?" Jude looked at the 70-year-old woman standing on his cracked sidewalk in her expensive clothes, holding his daughter's hand, asking permission to sit in his shabby house on Christmas Day. "Yeah," he said, his throat tight. "Yeah, you can stay." Lily shrieked with joy and dragged Charlotte toward the house. The driver started to get out, probably to help with the bags, but Charlotte waved him off. "Go home, James. Spend the day with your family. I'll call when I need you." "Are you sure, ma'am?" "Completely sure." Jude took the bags from her. They were heavy packed with enough food to feed 10 people and led her inside. He'd straightened up after breakfast, but the house was still small, still shabby, still everything it was last night. Charlotte didn't seem to notice. Or if she did, she didn't care. "Oh, you still have the tree up." She went straight to it, admiring Lily's decorations. "Did you make any new ornaments today, Lily? I made a snowman want to see." While Lily showed Charlotte her latest creation, a cotton ball snowman that was more glue than cotton, Jude unpacked the food. There was enough here to last him and Lily a week. A whole roasted turkey, perfectly golden, stuffing that smelled like sage and butter, green bean casserole in a glass dish, mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce, dinner rolls, and 3 pies, pumpkin apple, and something chocolate. "This is too much," he said when Charlotte came into the kitchen. "It's exactly enough. My chef always makes too much anyway, and it just goes to waste." She rolled up her sleeves. "Now where are your plates? We should heat everything up." "You don't have to." "I want to. Please let me help. I haven't actually cooked in years, and I miss it." So they worked together in his tiny kitchen, bumping into each other as they reheated food and set the table. Lily helped by folding napkins into fancy triangles that were really just squares folded in half, but Charlotte praised each one like it was origami. They sat down to eat at Jude's wobbly table, now covered with Christmas-themed napkin art and loaded with more food than it had probably ever held at once. "Daddy, should we say grace?" Lily asked. "You want to lead it?" Lily reached out her hands. Jude took one, and after a moment, Charlotte took the other. Then Charlotte offered her free hand to Jude, completing the circle. "Thank you for the food," Lily said, her eyes squeezed shut. "Thank you for Daddy and Miss Charlotte and Mr. Whiskers and Sir Theodore. And thank you that we found the music box, and thank you for making it stop snowing so we could play outside later." "Amen, amen," Jude and Charlotte echoed. They ate. And as they ate, something shifted in the room. The awkwardness from last night, the awareness of their different worlds faded. They were just people sharing a meal. Charlotte asked Lily about school, really listening as Lily explained the complex social dynamics of first-grade friendships and the ongoing saga of Mr. Whiskers the hamster. Lily asked Charlotte about her house, and Charlotte found herself describing it honestly. "It's very big. Too big, really. Your whole house could fit in my living room." "Wow, do you have a pool?" "I do. Indoor and outdoor." "Do you have 1,000,000 bathrooms?" Charlotte laughed. Seven. Lily's eyes went wide. "Daddy, she has 7 bathrooms. We only have one, and we have to share." "I'd trade 6 of my bathrooms for your tree," Charlotte said quietly. "Your father made something beautiful out of nothing. That's a rare gift." After dinner, Lily insisted on showing Charlotte her room. It was barely big enough for the twin bed and small dresser, but Lily had decorated it with drawings taped to every available surface. "This is where I sleep, and this is where Sir Theodore sleeps, except he's with you now. But that's okay because you needed him more, and this is my treasure box where I keep special things." She pulled out a shoebox from under her bed. Inside were treasures only a 6-year-old would value: a rock shaped like a heart, a McDonald's toy from 3 years ago, a button that had fallen off Jude's work shirt, a ribbon from a birthday present, a photograph of her as a baby with both parents. Charlotte picked up the photograph carefully. "Is this your mother?" "Yeah, but she left when I was little. Daddy says she loved me, but she loved other things more, and that's okay because Daddy loves me enough for 2 people. Charlotte's eyes met Jude's over Lily's head. He was standing in the doorway, and the look on his face, pride and pain mixed together, made her chest ache. "Your daddy's right," Charlotte said, "and you are very, very loved. I can tell." "I know," Lily said cheerfully. "I'm the luckiest." They moved back to the living room. Lily insisted they play the music box, so Jude wound it up, and they listened to Silent Night play in its broken, beautiful way. "I still haven't read the letter," Charlotte admitted. "Why not?" Lily asked. "Because I'm scared." "Of what?" "That once I read it, that's all I'll have left. No more surprises. No more words from him I haven't heard yet." Lily thought about this seriously. "But Miss Charlotte, he wrote it for you to read. He wants you to read it. And even after you read it, you can read it again and again, so the words never go away." Charlotte laughed a little watery. "You're absolutely right. When did you get so wise? I'm 6.5. Jude made hot chocolate, the good kind this time, made from cocoa powder and milk and sugar because he wanted to do something special. They drank it while watching the snow fall outside, and Charlotte taught Lily the proper way to hold a teacup, even though they were using mugs. "Pinky out is actually incorrect," Charlotte explained. "That's a common misconception. You hold it like this with your thumb and first finger supporting the handle, and the rest of your fingers follow naturally. Like this." Lily tried to copy her tongue sticking out in concentration. "Exactly like that. You're a natural." As the afternoon turned to evening, Lily started to tire. She curled up on the couch with her head in Charlotte's lap, fighting sleep because she didn't want the day to end. Charlotte stroked her hair gently. "You can rest, sweetheart. I'm not going anywhere. Promise. I promise." Within minutes, Lily was asleep. Jude sat in the chair across from them watching. Charlotte looked down at the sleeping child in her lap, and when she looked up at him, her eyes were full. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For letting me in. For sharing this with me. For letting me be part of this." "You brought the food," Jude said with a small smile. "That's not what I mean." Charlotte's hand rested on Lily's head, protective and gentle. "I have grandchildren, 3 of them, but they're always so busy with their activities, their schedules. I'm grandmother to them, someone who writes checks for birthdays and gives expensive gifts. I can't remember the last time one of them just sat with me like this." "That's their loss," Jude said quietly. "I used to think money would make my children happy, make them secure, but I think maybe it just made them—" She searched for the word. "Hollow. They have everything and appreciate nothing." "Lily has almost nothing and appreciates everything," Jude said. "But that's not about money. That's about teaching them what matters. You're a good father." "I try." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, Lily snoring softly between them. "I'm going to read it," Charlotte said suddenly. "What?" "The letter. Tonight when I get home. Lily's right, Richard wrote it for me to read. I've been holding on to grief for so long that I forgot how to hold on to love." She looked around the small, shabby, beautiful room. "You've taught me something," she said. "You and Lily. You've taught me that Christmas isn't about the size of the tree or the cost of the gifts. It's about this feeling. Being somewhere you're wanted. Being with people who see you, really see you." Jude didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded. When Lily woke up an hour later, groggy and confused, Charlotte asked if she could borrow a piece of paper and a marker. She wrote down her phone number in careful script. "This is my personal cell phone," she told Jude. "Not my house line. Just mine. I want you to have it. And I want to stay in touch if that's all right." "Yeah," Jude said. "That'd be fine." "Can we see you again?" Lily asked, rubbing her eyes. "Can you come to my school play? I'm going to be a reindeer in January." "I would love to come to your school play," Charlotte said, "if your father says it's okay." "Daddy." "Sure, baby. Miss Charlotte can come." When Charlotte finally called her driver and put on her coat, now professionally cleaned and returned by her staff, earlier that day, Lily hugged her so tight she almost knocked her over. "Thank you for the best Christmas ever," Lily said into Charlotte's sweater. Charlotte hugged her back just as fiercely. "Thank you for reminding me what Christmas is supposed to feel like." At the door, Charlotte turned to Jude. "I meant what I said last night. You are worth 10 of my children. More. You don't have to. I'm not being nice. I'm being honest." She reached out and squeezed his hand. "Thank you for finding me in that alley. Thank you for not leaving me there. Thank you for letting us help," Jude said. He and Lily stood on the porch waving as the Mercedes pulled away. Lily shivered in the cold, and Jude picked her up, carrying her back inside. "I love her daddy," Lily said sleepily. "I know, baby. I think she loves you too." "Are we going to see her again?" "Yeah," Jude said, looking at the phone number on his refrigerator, thinking about how sometimes broken things led to beautiful things. "Yeah, I think we will." 3 months later, on a Saturday morning in March, Jude Brooks stood in front of a small storefront on Maple Street and wondered if he was dreaming. The sign above the door read, "Brooks and Lily Repair Shop. We fix what others give up on." The sign had been Charlotte's idea. The shop had been her investment. It had happened gradually, the way most important things did. Charlotte had called the day after Christmas, asking if Jude could fix a broken lamp, then a chair with a wobbly leg, then her neighbor's antique clock that no one else could repair. Each time she'd paid him more than fairly, and each time she'd stayed to talk, to have coffee, to see Lily. By February, she was coming over twice a week. She'd taught Lily to play piano on a keyboard she'd found in storage, which Jude suspected she'd bought new, but was too proud to admit. She'd helped Jude file the paperwork to start an LLC. She'd connected him with people who needed things fixed, spreading word about his skills to her wealthy friends who had expensive broken things and no one they trusted to repair them. "You're too talented to waste it on just the auto shop," she'd said one evening, watching him restore a music box for one of her friends. "You could build something here, a real business." "Takes money to start a business," Jude had said. "I have money, more than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. And I'd rather invest it in someone who'll actually appreciate the opportunity than leave it to children who only want to know when I'll die so they can have it." "Charlotte, don't Charlotte me. I'm not being morbid, I'm being practical." She'd pulled out a folder. "I had my lawyer draw up papers. I invest in your business. Silent partner. You do the work. You run the shop, you make the decisions. I just help with startup costs and maybe work the counter a few hours a week. If you want." Jude had stared at the papers, his hands shaking. "Why would you do this?" "Because you and Lily gave me back my life when I was drowning in my own," Charlotte had said simply. "Because fixing broken things is what you were meant to do. And because, for once in my life, I want my money to actually mean something." Now, standing in front of his shop, his actual shop, Jude felt Lily tug his hand. "Can we go in now?" "Daddy, I want to see my desk." "Yeah, baby, let's go in." The shop was small but perfect. Front area with a counter and display shelves where people could drop off items or browse refurbished pieces Jude had fixed to sell. In the back, a proper workshop with a real workbench, pegboards covered in organized tools, good lighting, space heaters that didn't rattle. And in the corner of the front area, a small desk with Lily's Corner written on a hand-painted sign. Charlotte had insisted if the shop had Lily's name on it, Lily needed a space there too. The door chimed as they entered. Charlotte was already inside arranging the display shelves. She'd beaten them there even though Jude had the keys. "Good morning." She turned with a smile that had become familiar over the past 3 months. She looked younger now, lighter. She'd started wearing less formal clothes colors that weren't just black and cream. Today she wore a blue sweater and jeans. Actual jeans. Miss Charlotte Lily ran over for a hug. It was their routine now. "Good morning, sweet girl. Ready for opening day." "Are people going to come?" "People are definitely going to come. I've been spreading the word, and half of my country club has broken things they've been saving because they heard about your daddy's magic hands." Jude shook his head, smiling. "Not magic, just practice." "Magic," Charlotte insisted. They spent the morning doing final prep. Charlotte had arranged flowers for the counter, fresh tulips, her new favorite. Jude set up his tools, triple-checking that everything was in place. Lily arranged and rearranged her desk, testing out her new chair, organizing her coloring supplies. At noon, they flipped the sign to open. Within an hour, they had their first customer, Mrs. Patterson from Jude Street, bringing in her husband's pocket watch that had stopped working again. "Heard you got yourself a real shop, Jude," she said, smiling. "Figured it was time for a tune-up." By the end of the day, they'd taken in 7 repair jobs. A broken music box, Charlotte had smiled at that one. A lamp with bad wiring. An antique rocking chair. A grandfather clock. A sewing machine. A vintage radio. And a set of china that someone's daughter had dropped. Jude took notes on each item, gave honest estimates, promised to call when the work was done. When the last customer left, he locked the door and turned to find Charlotte and Lily setting up something on the counter. "Surprise!" Lily shouted. It was a cake, small, homemade, with grand opening, written in wobbly icing. Charlotte had clearly helped, but Lily had done the decorating based on the amount of sprinkles and the 3-dimensional frosting flour that looked more like a blob. "We made it this morning before you woke up," Lily explained. "Miss Charlotte let me crack the eggs and everything. Only dropped one on the floor," Charlotte added. They ate cake straight from the pan with plastic forks sitting on the workshop stools, their feet not quite touching the floor. "This is good," Jude said and meant it. The cake was a little dry, a little too sweet, absolutely perfect. "We used 3 kinds of sprinkles," Lily informed him seriously, "because 3 is a magic number." Charlotte caught Jude's eye and smiled. In the 3 months since Christmas, something had shifted between them. Not romantic, the age difference and their different worlds made that impossible and inappropriate, but something deeper than friendship, chosen family, the kind of bond that forms when people save each other at exactly the right moment. Charlotte had read her husband's letter on New Year's Eve. She'd called Jude at midnight crying, and he'd stayed on the phone with her for an hour while she read it aloud. It had been everything she'd hoped, a love letter, a thank you, a blessing to move forward and find joy again. "He told me not to become a ghost in our house," she'd said through tears. "He told me to live, really live, to find people who make me laugh and places that make me feel alive, and to stop measuring my worth by my bank account." "Sounds like a smart man," Jude had said. "He was, and I think he'd like you." In February, Charlotte had started going to therapy. She'd reconnected with old friends she'd lost touch with over the years. She'd started painting again watercolors, mostly setting up an easel in her sunroom. And she'd stopped attending family dinners at her house. Instead, she had dinner at Jude's place twice a week, where Lily would chatter about her day, and Jude would cook simple meals, and Charlotte would help with dishes while feeling more useful than she had in years. Her children had been furious, of course. They'd accused her of being manipulated by Jude. They'd threatened to have her declared incompetent. They'd hired lawyers. Charlotte had hired better lawyers. She'd also changed her will, though she hadn't told anyone except her attorney. Most of her estate would still go to her children. She wasn't cruel. But a significant portion now went to establishing a foundation that would fund small business loans for people like Jude, people with skills and dreams but no capital, people who just needed someone to believe in them. "What are you thinking about?" Jude asked, now watching her smile at Lily, who was explaining her very detailed organizational system for her desk. "I'm thinking about how much can change in 3 months," Charlotte said. "How different my life looks now than it did on Christmas Eve. Better, infinitely better." She looked around the shop, the pegboards, the tools, the little desk with Lily's name on it. "I spent 40 years in that mansion feeling like I was disappearing, like I was becoming invisible. And then I met a man and his daughter who saw me when I was literally digging through garbage." "You weren't invisible," Jude said quietly. "You were just surrounded by people who weren't looking." Charlotte's eyes got a little wet, but she was smiling. "Thank you for looking. Thank you for stopping by my truck that night." "I didn't stop by. I was a mess in an alley." "Same thing." They laughed and Lily looked up from her desk. "What's funny?" "Just remembering the night we met," Charlotte said. "When you were looking for treasure in the trash," Lily abandoned her desk and climbed into Charlotte's lap like it was the most natural thing in the world. "And we helped you find it." "You did more than help me find it," Charlotte said, hugging her close. "You helped me find everything I'd lost. My purpose, my joy, my belief that family isn't just who you're born to, it's who chooses to love you." On the wall behind the counter, Jude had hung a framed photograph. It showed the three of them on Christmas Day. Charlotte in her expensive sweater, Lily in her hand-me-down pajamas, and Jude in his snowman robe. They were crowded around the makeshift Christmas tree, and they were all laughing at something Lily had said. Under the photo, Charlotte had written in her elegant script, "Sometimes the richest gifts come wrapped in the simplest paper." "Daddy," Lily said suddenly, "can we show Miss Charlotte the special thing now?" "What special thing?" Charlotte asked. Jude went to the workshop and came back with something covered in a cloth. He set it on the counter and pulled the cloth away. It was a music box. Not Charlotte's, hers was safely at her house. This was one Jude had made from scratch over the past month, working late nights after Lily was asleep. It was walnut like Charlotte's, but without the crack. The brass fittings were new, but aged to look vintage. And when he opened it, Silent Night played clear and true. Inside the lid, he'd burned an inscription, "For Charlotte, who taught us that broken things can become beautiful things. With love, Jude and Lily." Charlotte pressed her hand to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. "You made this." "We made it," Lily corrected. "I helped sand it, and I picked the song." Charlotte picked up the music box with trembling hands, listening to the melody. "It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect." "Now you have two," Lily said. "The one with your husband's letter, and this one with our love in it." Charlotte pulled them both into a hug, this strange, beautiful family that had formed around a dumpster and a Christmas tree made of branches. "I was wrong," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "When I met you, I thought I was looking for one lost treasure. But I found two. I found you both." Outside, through the shop window, people walked past in the March sunshine. Some glanced at the new shop, reading the sign, making mental notes to come back later with broken things. Inside, three people who'd been broken in different ways stood together, whole. Jude looked at his daughter, who'd never had much but had never learned to feel poor. He looked at Charlotte, who'd had everything except what mattered until she'd lost it all and found it again in an alley behind a jewelry store. And he thought about his mother's quilt still safely stored with that unread letter in the lining. Maybe someday he'd read it, or maybe like Charlotte, he'd already learned what it was going to tell him. That love doesn't end. It just transforms, Dot. That family isn't about blood, or money, or the size of your house, Dot. That sometimes the most valuable things in life are the ones we almost throw away, Dot. That broken things in the right hands become treasures. "Okay," Charlotte said, wiping her eyes and laughing. "Enough crying. This is a celebration." "Lily, what should we do to celebrate?" "Ice cream," Lily shouted immediately. "Ice cream it is," Jude agreed. They locked up their shop, and walked down the street together. Charlotte in the middle, holding Lily's hand on one side and Jude's on the other. A woman who'd spent Christmas digging through garbage. A man who'd stopped when everyone else would have driven past. A little girl who'd seen a fairy buy the trash and believed in happy endings. Behind them, through the shop window, the sun caught the framed photograph on the wall. Three people around a makeshift Christmas tree, laughing at something that probably wasn't that funny, but felt like everything in the moment. And on the counter, two music boxes sat side by side, one broken and mended, holding the words of a love that had ended, one new and perfect, holding the promise of a love that was just beginning, both playing the same song, both equally priceless. Both proof that sometimes the best gifts aren't the ones we buy or wrap or put under a tree. Sometimes the best gifts are the ones we give when we stop, when we see someone who needs us, when we choose kindness over convenience. Sometimes the best gifts are the people we find when we're brave enough to be lost. And sometimes, just sometimes, the treasures we're looking for have been there all along, waiting in places we never thought to look, in shabby houses with leaking ceilings and homemade trees and plastic spoons in the hands of strangers who become family when we need them most. The music boxes kept playing. The shop doors said, "Open." And somewhere in a mansion across town, a letter in an old music box waited to be read again, its words unchanged, but their meaning deeper, now enriched by new love and new family and new understanding of what it means to be truly wealthy. Not in things, in people, in moments, in the choice to stop and help when it would be easier to drive away. That was the real treasure. And they'd all found it together one snowy Christmas night when a woman lost everything, and a man and his daughter helped her find what mattered most. Not in the trash, but in each other.
Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.